Well, hello, how are you? It's just gone 9 o'clock here in Portstewart in Northern Ireland, and I hope you're staying safe and staying well wherever you are. I'm glad you could join me for another reading from one of my books. As you may know, every weekday evening at this time, I've been reading from my books. We've been the whole way through Paperboy at this stage. If you missed that, it's on my Facebook page or on my YouTube channel. But I'm back this evening with the latest chapter from Breadboy. And this evening, I'm going to read chapter 4 of Breadboy. And it's entitled Boy Meets Wonder Girl. Judy Carton was lovely, so she was. She had vivid blue eyes and silky black hair, like a lovely model in a commercial for Harmony hairspray. Judy looked like Linda Carter, who was Wonder Woman. According to Look In magazine, Linda Carter had been a Miss America or something before she started to spin around and around on TV every week to turn into a gorgeous superhero. Wonder Woman wore sexy American flag hot pants and bullet deflecting bracelets. I wanted Judy Carton to be my own personal Wonder Woman in any colour of hot pants, and I thought that every woman in Belfast deserved to have a pair of bullet deflecting bracelets. Even though I was all grown up now, I'd only experienced one true love. Sharon Burgess had been my first sweetheart. She had beautiful brown eyes and lovely brown hair flicked like the blonde one in Pan's People on Top of the Pops. During the course of our relationship, I had taken Sharon in a black taxi down the Shankill to see the Bay City Rollers in concert at the Ulster Hall. I was a very romantic person. Sharon displayed more interest in me than in Les McCune that night. But sadly, it had all gone terribly wrong when she started asking me for too much commitment. Sharon expected me to be present with her at the Westie Disco every single Saturday night, even when it clashed with the Eurovision Song Contest or a repeat of the Morecambe and Wise Christmas show. To be perfectly honest, in the end, I had to dump poor Sharon. No matter what Titch McCracken told everyone, I chucked Sharon. She definitely did not do the chucking, all right? Later, to prove that she still hadn't got over me, I heard through the grapevine that she may have fallen in love with my big brother. But he wasn't interested in her because he preferred girls who did gymnastics. Sharon ended up with a wee lad that stacked shelves in the co-op. I realised I had broken her heart. It was very sad and tragic, like that love story movie on TV, except nobody died. Poor Sharon thought we were going to be a forever couple, like Bjorn and Agnetha in ABBA. It must have been very hard for her, but I hope she got over me. After Sharon, I had contented myself with weekly episodes of Charlie's Angels for a while, as an alternative to a real-life girlfriend. But even Farrah Fawcett Majors up on my bedroom wall in a swimsuit wasn't the same thing as having a real girlfriend who would hold your hand and kiss you like she meant it, the way Sharon Burgess had during Donny Osmond songs on the dance floor of the Westie Disco. When Farrah left Charlie's Angels, I redirected my affections to Lindsay Wagner, the bionic woman. For a short while anyway, but this relationship didn't work out either. I enjoyed watching Lindsay Wagner run in slow motion, but the bionic woman and I simply weren't compatible. Inevitably, the first time I set my eyes on Wonder Woman, I knew that my relationship with Lindsay Wagner was over. My love life was more complicated than the trials of Sandy in the wheelchair in Crossroads, but I realised this was just a part of being all grown up now. So let's say hello. He says he's joined me this evening. Oh my goodness, lots of people. Hello, Kenneth Glenville. Good to see you along again. And Marty McCauley. Oh, Marty, I am wearing my Clan Macaulay polo shirt tonight. Hello, Ali Bennett, who's always here. Good to have you along, Ali. Oh, you've caught up, Kenneth. That's great to hear. And you're live now with chapter 4. Hello, Brendan. Hi. Yes, you're in Ballyclare, Ali. Yes, I'm back. Oh, thank you very much, Anne Kirk. Yes, I'm back. Yes, I thought you might like that shirt, Marty. It's got the Macaulay Clan Dulce curriculum, which means sweet through danger, I think. Jim Livingstone and Michael McKinley Sr., good to see you again. And my old friend Alan McLean. Hello from Aylesbury. Norma Fleming, glad you could join me live this evening. Hi, Betty O'Riordan. Yes. Hi, Tony, glad you're back on live reading for us. Yes, good to be back. Hello, Maureen Robinson and Damien Hall in Edinburgh, and Nigel McComb and Scott Macaulay, my very talented nephew, who goes live, I think, on a Saturday night with some fantastic songs. Robert Briscoe as well. So it's good to have you all along. I'm going to continue reading about my teenage years. A lot of hormones going on here, so I have to warn you in advance, this might get a little bit rude in places. It had placed Judy Carton and me in the same chemistry class. On the momentous morning of our first lesson together, Judy sat directly opposite me on the other side of the classroom. I had never noticed her before, but even though we'd been in the same form for 3 years, we'd never been in the same class. I didn't even know her name until Miss Kelly, the chemistry teacher, started to do the roll call, and I heard Judy whisper a shy, "Present, miss." Even though I learnt the name of every element on the periodic table that term, none of these names, not even the most interesting ones like neon and mercury, caught my interest like Judy Carton's. All that separated me from her was Frankie Jones' spotty face, sitting right in front of me, and the back of Timothy Longsley's rather large head, sitting right in front of Judy. Every time I glanced up from my chemistry books, I caught a glimpse of her pretty face, concentrating earnestly on an acid or an alkaline. Sometimes her porcelain forehead wrinkled as she struggled with the complexities of oxidization. But even then she remained perfect in my eyes. Whenever I lifted my head from the challenges of analysing a chemical reaction, I could always detect her sweet smile across the classroom. As I gazed upon her loveliness, my safety goggles steamed up, and I couldn't see the blackboard properly, and so sometimes copied down formulae incorrectly and lost marks in my homework. But I didn't. Judy was worth every fogged up goggle and every drop mark. I could sense from her occasional glances and smiles in my direction that we were starting to develop a beautiful relationship, although we hadn't actually spoken to one another yet. So I made use of every opportunity to make first contact, like the aliens in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. When our chemistry teacher called the roll, I said, "Present, miss," firmly in my deepest, most broken voice. I tried to sound more Antrim Road than Shankill Road. I was sure this would capture Judy's attention. Miss Kelly was very old and a tiny teacher with wrinkles from Dublin. Frankie Jones said she was probably a Catholic because you weren't allowed to be a Protestant in Dublin. Miss Kelly had never married, and Frankie asserted that this was the reason why she was so grumpy most of the time. I wasn't so sure of this cause and effect hypothesis because my granda had been married to my granny for years, and this seemed to make him grumpy most of the time. However, even Miss Kelly's gloomy countenance could not smother the flames of love that were igniting under her wrinkled nose, like a belligerent Bunsen burner, refusing to extinguish after you'd tried turning off the faulty gas tap. Unfortunately, there was one major barrier to my blossoming relationship with Judy Carton, and it was sitting right in front of her. Timothy Longsley. He was literally getting in the way. I had never met a real Timothy before I went to grammar school. There were no Timothys whatsoever on the Shankill, and it wasn't even a Catholic name. I read about Timmies who drank lashings of ginger beer in Enid Blyton books. I watched plenty of posh English Timothys on sitcoms on BBC One who called their parents Mama and Papa. But I had no idea that we had real live Timothys right here in Northern Ireland. Hope there's no Timothys watching tonight. When I first went to BRA, I discovered there were at least a couple of Timothys in every class. They did all their homework and pronounced all their ings. The Timothys in books and on television were usually English twits to laugh at, but Timothy Longsley was no laughing matter. He was smart and rich and tall and good at rugby. He had been recruited into the medallion rugby team, even though he wasn't in fifth form yet. He was always being called up onto the stage during assembly to receive medals, applause, and adoration for his great sporting achievements. When the PE teacher got us to pick teams for football, Timothy always got picked first, and I got picked almost last, although mercifully before the boys with lisps and asthma. Of course, Timothy had proper sideburns and had already started shaving. He smelt of mandate aftershave, which was denim for rich people. The first form girls giggled when Timothy swaggered past them in the playground because they all fancied him. I couldn't understand why he impressed everyone because I had never met anyone so arrogant in all my life. Timothy enjoyed exposing people's weaknesses in public acts of humiliation, usually in the playground. He looked down his nose at most people, but he was particularly snotty with me when he discovered that I came from up the Shankill. "Burnt any buses this weekend, van boy?" he asked sneeringly one Monday morning in front of Judy in the playground. "Don't you show your ignorance, Longsley. Sure you know I'm a pacifist, so I am," I respond firmly. "Fucking stupid as well as poor," he retorted. Several members of the Form 1 hockey squad passed by, giggling irritatingly behind their hands. Timothy was a true test to my peace-loving values. I know I was supposed to be the only teenage pacifist from West Belfast, but I often had the urge to attempt some violence on Timothy. However, I restrained myself because I knew I had my principles to keep, and apart from that, he was bigger than me, and I knew I would only get decked. Timothy Longsley lived up the Antrim Road in a big house with 1,000,000 bedrooms and a swimming pool in the back garden surrounded by flowering cherry trees. His papa was a lawyer and his mama always wore a fur coat and too much makeup at the school prize giving. His brother played in the glorious First 15 rugby team and always got a prize for Latin. At school concerts, when his parents politely applauded off-tune Gilbert and Sullivan operetta, I noticed how clean their hands were. The Longsley owned a cottage in La Someplace or Other sur Mer in France. As a result of this unfair advantage, he always came top of the class in French. We used to have a family holiday home too, but our caravan in Malile sur la County Down coast could never compete with what Timothy regularly referred to as ma petite gîte. I hated Timothy Longsley. He was a git with a gate. However, it was his proximity to Judy Carton that concerned me more than anything else. He got to sit opposite Judy in chemistry class purely as a result of alphabetic seating. This privileged position ensured that he got to speak to Judy and do experiments with her. I watched from a distance with growing jealousy as I observed Judy sharing test tubes with Timothy. My envy grew when I noticed Timothy helpfully screwing Judy's retort stand. "What's the matter, Tony?" asked Frankie Jones insensitively. "Is Timmy experimenting with Juicy Judy again?" He followed this remark with a laugh that was as filthy as the magazine hidden underneath his chemistry textbooks. Frankie's obsession with sex seemed to get worse with every fresh eruption of spots on his cheeks. "Is she giving his test tube a wee shake?" he added with a deep and filthy cackle. All of a sudden, everyone wanted to talk about sex and make jokes about sex all the time. Our teacher in RE said it was because we were going through puberty, which I thought sounded like going through purgatory, and only Catholics did that. Frankie Jones knew more about sex than anyone else my age. He brought smutty magazines into school in his school bag, and he told dirty jokes that I didn't fully understand. Frankie laughed hysterically every time I asked him to lend me his rubber. I soon learned to join in and laugh loudly at any dirty sounding joke, just in case anyone noticed that I didn't understand everything there was to know about sex. In fact, sex was turning out to be rather like chemistry. There was a lot of talk about the theory, but very little practical experience. At the beginning of term, it became clear that Frankie Jones had become the class expert in a new hobby called masturbation. He seemed to practice it an awful lot. I wondered if this was why he had so many spots. "It's class," he enthused to the uninitiated. "It's like the real thing, except without a woman." This sounded fairly pleasurable to me, so I assumed it must be a sin. I earnestly searched the Bible, but to my relief, I could not find a relevant "thou shalt not." At the beginning of term, all the other boys in chemistry class made fun of Frankie Jones and called him a wee wanker. By the end of term, we were all wee wankers, except for Martin Patterson, who said Jesus wouldn't let him. With all of these teenage hormones rampaging around our chemistry class, it was hard to concentrate on the actual task in hand. In spite of valiant efforts by Miss Kelly to teach me about elements and compounds, I used the precious hours in her classroom to analyse the extent to which there was chemistry between Judy Carton and me. Eventually, I realised I would have to speak to Judy, so I wondered how to set up some experiment to be the litmus test of our relationship. I had learned many years ago at the Westie Disco that if you wanted to let someone know you fancied them, you had to persuade a friend to check out the level of reciprocated interest first. The purpose of this was to reduce embarrassment, to save any unnecessary direct rejection, and also to avoid the scenario of your big brother shouting, "Turn down, sickener," to the assembled crowd if the response happened to be negative. I had often been on the receiving end of such inquiries from the more available girls at the Westie Disco, who seemed to be millies who said fuck a lot and smoked and twirled their chewing gum round their fingers between chews. "Here, wee lad, will you see my friend?" was the typical request. I was determined to find some more sophisticated way of getting Judy the opportunity to respond to my advances, just such as asking her to a disco. Judy lived in a posh house up the Antrim Road, and so I assumed the Westie Disco up the Shankill would be out of the question. In chemistry, I had a very limited pool of friends I could persuade to approach Judy for me. But I was also aware that if I didn't give a move on, Timothy Longsley would get in there first, and in no time at all, Judy would be cheering for him on the touchline at rugger games. It was this sense of urgency that led me to make my first big mistake with Judy. The nearest, most obvious person to make the initial inquiry was Frankie Jones. He was in the same class, sat opposite me, and knew everything there was to know about girls and sex. "Once a month, they don't do PE in case they're pregnant," he explained knowledgeably. So I foolishly asked Frankie to find out if Judy liked me back. "Will you ask her if she fancies me, Frankie?" "Aye, no probs," replied Frankie, as he preened a little on his stool at my recognition of his masterful way with women. "Don't tell her I fancy her, and don't make me sound like a hornball," I instructed him. Later that afternoon, as we left chemistry class, Frankie caught up with Judy on the stairs. "Here, Judy," called Frankie, much too loudly, as every pupil on the packed stairway seemed to fall silent. "Hiya, Frankie," replied Judy sweetly. "What do you think I'm a-calling?" he asked, even more loudly. "Who?" replied Judy. "Your man over there with the Leeds United school bag and the big spots on his chin." said Frankie, pointing me out to Judy and the whole of the school. Dunno, replied Judy, looking at me curiously, as if I had hitherto been the invisible man. This was probably good news. It was all very embarrassing, and I was hitting a serious reddener, but this reply gave me great hope. It wasn't a no. But then Frankie destroyed the romantic moment with one devastating remark. He wants to snog you like he sucks a Cadbury's cream egg. Judy blushed, lowered her eyes, and walked on briskly, while several disgusted female classmates pointed in my direction, shouting, "Pervert!" Frankie had no idea how inappropriate he had been with my sweetheart. I wanted to kick him so hard between the legs they would have to abstain from masturbation for at least a day or two. But I realised a teenage pacifist should not even consider such violence, so I went into the boys' toilets and kicked a urinal instead. One day, Judy Carton would notice me. I was sure of it. It had to happen. Sooner or later, I imagined we would become a proper couple, like Paul and Linda McCartney. We would meet outside chemistry, and I would bring her buns from the Ormo mini shop, and she would accept an invitation to the Westie disco, even though it was up the Shankill. We would dance, and she would let me snog her. One day, Judy Carton would be my girl, and everything would be brilliant. I was in love, so I was. So there you go. That's all the teenage hormones going wild in chapter 4 of Breadboy. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for joining me this evening. Say hello to a few more people before I go. Aline Bonner, hi, glad you're back. You had to read your own bedtime story when I took a few days off. Well, I'm back now, and I'll be back here every weekday evening. Hello, Mona Trainer and Amber Fairburn. Hi, Bernadette Saunders. Good evening to you too. Hi, Thomas. And Jerry Kane, you're enjoying it. Thanks very much. Hello, Anne Brown. Hope you're well. Mark Macaulay. Yes, Mark. I'm wearing the, where is it? I'm wearing the Macaulay Clan blue shirt tonight. Like so many, glad you're back, hanging in there in Kentucky. Yeah, I hope you're all safe and well there in Kentucky, Mark. Glad you enjoyed it again, Michael McKinley Sr. and Vicky Don Calendar, good to have you here. And Francis McGrath. And Donna Hunter said, thanks, Tony, connection was better tonight. Oh, good, I'm glad you had good connection. Okay, well, it's been lovely to connect with everyone again this evening. I hope you enjoyed chapter 4 of Breadboy, and I'll be back tomorrow night with chapter 5. In the meantime, wherever you are, stay well, stay home, and stay positive. Bye for now.